Apparently there was 4 different castles or keeps or strongholds, and he tricked them in 4 different ways. I don't know if you want to tell one of the ones or two.
I recall reading a tale of how they were camped outside the town, and so they got a bunch of birds, set fire to the birds, and the birds flew into their nests on fire and set fire to the town. And it's, I mean, don't get me wrong, clever, awful, but clever.
yeah. Well, it puts you in mind, it is like a sort of a take on the Hannibal Bull's horns on fire thing. So they saw some birds that were obviously sort of domestic birds from the town. And the town, they had thatched roofs, apparently. So they captured a couple of these birds and somehow attached something to the backs of the birds. It was like pitch, tar and pitch. And they would light it, so the bird didn't immediately go up in flame itself, but it was carrying an incendiary of some type.
the bird's panicking a bit.
And you send the bird out, and the bird apparently just goes on autopilot and goes back home and sets fire to the thatched roofs.
It's a great trick.
It sounds like that's a bit too. Is that actually ever possible?
But it's one of those stories that's just so strange
story.
You wouldn't have made it up, right? It's like, okay, well that. Why would you have made up that story? Why not a different story? I find myself believing these strange stories because I don't really think they're things you could fictionalize.
Yeah, quite possibly. No, absolutely, quite possibly. There's one where they couldn't take a particular walled town, so what they did over many, many days, they started playing games. They were unarmed. Started playing games in front of the wall, different games, and then after a few days worth of this, they realised that the defenders were letting their guard down, or had let their guard down. They were used to them turning up at the foot of the walls and playing games. So they went there sort of secretly armed.
Yeah.
And then a particular incident sort of charged the gatehouse that wasn't being defended properly.
Oh, look, the enemy are playing games unarmed. Okay, shoot them with arrows. Like, what are you doing? What are you waiting around? They're fine.
There's one thing when you sort of know, maybe this is just pure maybe here, but where you sort of know that you're probably going to lose the siege. They're probably going to take at you at some point. So best not actually annoy them as much as possible. Because when they get inside, hopefully they won't butcher us to a man. I don't know. That's just pure speculation. I don't know. Yeah. One of the other ones I'll just quickly say is that this is sort of classic Hardrada, is that they, again, couldn't take a particular town, I think in Sicily again, and they sent out news that Hardrada was terribly ill, he might die. And they did that for a few days and then sent out news, Hardrada has died. And look, we're going to leave you alone. The whole campaign is over. We're done with. But before we do, we'd like to inter him in consecrated ground, his body. So they let in a really small contingent of Varangians carrying a coffin.
And Hardrada's inside and alive.
And he pops out and they start just butchering everyone around them in the church, inside the church,
Absolute
inside
mad
the town.
lads.
Proper mad lad territory.
Presumably then run to the gate, unlock the gate.
Exactly that. Apparently they used the coffin to wedge open the gate.
Insane.
Yeah. There's a couple of stories of like Richard the Lionheart where he do stuff like that, like charge a town with like 10 guys or something. It's like, can't imagine how ballsy that is.
Yeah.
Or you just are prepared to die.
Yeah. Actual mad lad territory.
Though. Yeah. And or just got absolute faith that, I can cut my way out from the middle of a city.
Oh, yeah.
With me and my, dozen guys.
I mean, we've been everywhere, fought everyone and killed everything. So I'm pretty sure we can do this.
Yeah. I know exactly how many men me and my men can take on at any given moment. And it's more or less a whole town.
Yeah. And we can keep moving so they can't pin us down, etc.
Yeah.
No, that's excellent.
So again, at some point, William Strongarm turns against him and actually has a battle in Italy, which Hardrada loses and actually pushed out of Italy at one point. That's one of the few times he sort of is turned back. And
just an important point, the Normans are incredibly intimidating at this point. Like, they're just professional warriors who've conquered everything, apart from England yet. But we should do a thing entirely on the Normans, really, because the Normans are the sort of real success story of Western Europe during the Middle Ages. Like, wherever something crazy is going on, you'll find the Normans there with like a few hundred knights smashing something. And it's like, okay, well done,
Yeah.
Can't argue with success.
Have I been calling him William Strongarm? It's William Iron Arm.
Ah, right, okay.
Sorry about that. Any Iron Arm fans out there? I don't actually know a great deal about William Iron Arm, I must say. sort of aware of him. I know some of the details of what he gets up to, but I don't know fantastic amount of detail about him, I must say.
Must have had a strong strike.
Yeah, you can only imagine.
You don't get the name Iron Arm throughout history without, being able to give it a good one.
And turning Hardrada back.
Yeah.
That's no mean feat. No. Not many people can say they did that. There's the Battle of Orvieto is one of the main ones where William the Iron Arm pushes Hardrada back. A couple more quick things to say sort of in this 8-10 year period. He does a lot of... Another reason why they like Scandinavians, or Viking types in Byzantium is that they're great at navies. They're great at ship-going engagements, obviously. Sort of the Viking longship, famously.
Because that's how they get around.
They're sort of seagoers, aren't they? Seafarers. Or Viking means to be sort of seagoing in some ways. Sea rovers.
Yeah.
All sorts of things they're called. So, yeah, they're great for going around sort of the Med, and he picks up loads of pirates, particularly around Greece and the Aegean and the Greek islands and things, which is obviously right near the mouth of the Dardanelles, essentially, isn't it? Really right near Byzantium. And he sort of sweeps the seas at various times of lots of mainly Arab, but all sorts of different pirates.
Yeah.
It's always a problem in the Med, pirates.
God, he's really busy though, isn't he?
Oh yeah, it doesn't stop. It just doesn't stop.
Constantly killing people.
Yeah. Again, I hark back to those people. Like he should, by rights, have really died.
Yeah, a lot of times. Yeah,
like Stalin really, really should have died 4 or 5 times. Surprising that he made it to adulthood, or late adulthood. Same with Hardrada. It's really surprising, to be quite honest. By rights, something should have swept him away. One last thing I suppose to mention then, again, if we're just whipping through this period, because I think we've already been going nearly an hour. Damn. Is when there's palace coups, people know about Byzantium, especially sort of mid-Byzantium, getting towards late Byzantium. There's loads of palace coups all the time. Eunuchs, the wives, the empresses, the consorts, all sorts of palace coups go on. And this is no exception. In fact, it's sort of one of the high watermarks of that sort of thing. And just like in classical Rome, whenever there's a new emperor or empress, quite often they'll give a donative. They'll just give loads of money, just a massive cash sum, lump sum to their bodyguards to make sure they're on side.
Got to keep them on side.
And they would call this palace plunder. Oh. That was what they would call it.
Right.
And as well as getting loads of booty on in his general travels,
which he undoubtedly did,
which he got loads, he also 3 separate times got big chunks of palace plunder in a coup, in a palace coup. And the last one of those 3 apparently got tons because he was basically something like the head of the Varangian Guard by the end of this. He was basically the head of them.
Yeah.
So the head of the Varangian Guard, his cut of palace plunder is giant. And he sends it all back to that Yaroslav up in Kiev, remember?
Yeah.
He keeps it all in trust for him.
Very kind of him.
Bloody good of him. Yeah.
But you are right. Like by this point, maybe he is actually worried he might turn up with an army.
He's arguably one of the most powerful people in the world. Yeah.
Definitely quite a scary guy. Maybe I won't spend his money.
Yeah. I guess it must have been just some sort of, I just don't want to mess with this guy.
Maybe. It might have been they swore an oath or something. Who knows, but I'm sure Harold's reputation kept that oath good.
If Al Capone asks to use your safe, he wants to put bundles of cash in your safe. You go, okay, but you wouldn't dream of stealing of it, would you?
No, I don't think I would.
Wouldn't have thought so. I'm happy to help. And don't worry about it. I'm not going to steal any. Maybe it was that. It's something like that. Okay, now, something happens with Michael the Fourth, where he's married to this Zoe. Porphyrogenitor, Zoe Porphyrogenitor, which means born to the purple.
Yeah.
So she was born to Constantine VIII whilst he was emperor, which means simple, straightforward as that, born to the purple. And then when she marries various different people who become emperor, but eventually is with Michael the Fourth, who reigns for a fair amount of time, good few years. What is it, 10 years or so? Michael the Fourth, 7 years he rose, which isn't a bad innings for this time to be a Byzantine emperor. That means you've actually got some sort of stability. It doesn't sound like much, but a lot of these guys, sometimes you've got multiple emperors in 1 year. Sometimes, quite often they'll last for a number of months or 1 year.
I don't know
or something. So
why anyone would want to be a Byzantine emperor frankly.
Poison chalice, isn't it?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
You're going to get killed.
Yeah.
Someone's going to kill you.
Yeah. And if you don't, then it's going to be a really, really stressful life.
Yeah. Yeah, you're constantly going to be foiling plots. So,
yeah. Yeah. So anyway, eventually there's this palace coup that removes Michael IV, and we get a Michael V.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't last all that long, because it seems like Zoe, the Empress Zoe, is really sort of playing, and her sister Theodora are sort of playing, palace politics and all sorts of coups. And it seems that Hardrada is right in the thick of that, or he must be, absolutely sort of at the pinnacle of palace politics by this point. And for whatever reason, it seems like the powers that be, Zoe and her whole faction, she's not just on her own, they have all sorts of powerful men behind her, decide they need to sort of get rid of this Michael V. So Hardrada blinds him and castrates him.
Bloody hell.
There are some different accounts on that, because people that know their stuff will be like, that's not right. Bo's got that wrong. Well, we're not sure exactly whether he was just blinded and castrated, or whether Hardrada personally did it, or whether it was Hardrada's men that did it, or if Hardrada wasn't involved in it at all.
But the point is, it's really horrible what they do to each other. Byzantine politics are insanely cruel.
Yeah, really badly.
Yeah.
I mean, being blinded and castrated, that's almost as bad as having both your arms and legs cut off and blinded or something. Yeah, it's just barbaric.
Yeah.
In the extreme, isn't it? And he died shortly after of the wounds.
Yeah.
Because quite often you'll say something like, they were castrated or they were blinded or something, but it really means they were executed.
Yeah.
Effectively. You can survive it, and loads did.
But loads didn't.
Yeah. I mean, Justinian II had his nose cut off, didn't he? And he completely survived that. But anyway, Michael V doesn't survive for very long after that happened. Okay, so now, again, a lot of it has to be sort of inferred. But the next thing that happens, Zoe rules in her own right as an empress. I wonder how Mary Beard would explain that. But so she does that, and it seems, though, that Hardrada realises, like we said a few times, he's no chump. He's not a fool.
He's like, this woman's a lunatic.
Well, he realises that it's just too hot for even him. The whole situation is just too perilous and dangerous, even for him.
Yeah.
And he's been playing this game now for maybe as many as 10 years.
And Harald Hardrada's like, well, I'm out.
Yeah.
Like, it's got to be bad if he's like, I'm not having this.
To watch the full video, please become a premium member at lotuseaters.com.